Gigi Berardi reading FoodWISE tonight and starting a new section, very exciting, called We Need Biodiversity. And I will share with you some information on a dance company that's doing the right thing in the true sense of biodiversity in this era of coronavirus. So I see applications to food, what we need to do to be resilient, and applications to the arts for sure. We need biodiversity. For me, tomatoes will always symbolize much that is wrong with modern agriculture, but also some of the pleasures and satisfactions of being myself a small part of alternative systems. Some of you readers have a lot more experience growing tomatoes than I did, even after 4 years of teaching food courses as a graduate student at Cornell, when, for part of my master's thesis research, I lived with a group of old order Mennonite organic farmers in central Pennsylvania. Among other crops, they grew tomatoes. At harvest time, we literally had tons of them in the field. I still remember the back-breaking work of harvesting and the gummy, sticky residue on the ground. We were all barefoot, feet being easier to clean than shoes. On the plants and on us, all in sweltering heat. I learned a lot about tomato plant spacing, insect control, and particularly post-harvest losses, most of which were quite smelly. At about the same time, rural populist and later Secretary of Agriculture for Texas, Jim Hightower, released Hard Tomatoes, Hard Times. This report of the Agribusiness Accountability Project on the failure of U.S. land-grant colleges to meet the needs of small-scale growers was a well-worded polemic against mega-scale farms. It highlighted wealthy constituencies, racial discrimination, little transparency, and literally hard tomatoes as major problems associated with the government-funded agricultural research complex. Hightower used tomatoes as a great example of more widespread, pervasive failures. Bred for tough skin, but also poor maturity, those tomatoes were perfect for machine harvesting, thus maximizing profits, but minimizing quality of taste and possibly even nutrition. When I think of the industrial style tomatoes Hightower describes, next to the tasty whole food tomatoes in the Pennsylvania countryside that stained my feet and exploded on my tongue, well, there is no comparison. Anyone who grows her or his own tomatoes can experience firsthand the difference between plants grown hands-on with all the care and time that entails, and those grown for the mass market. The Mennonite soft, juicy tomatoes persist today, mostly in people's backyards. Elsewhere, tomatoes are a globalized product, tended by economically vulnerable people working in back-breaking positions, high heat and humidity with unacceptable living and working conditions. Labor organizing here, and actually for much of agriculture, has not been successful. So the story tonight features a dance company in Seattle called Whim W'Him. And they have announced in a very bold move that their 2020-2021 season will be all online. Just like I blogged a little while ago about Cambridge University in the UK being completely online until summer of 2021. Another bold move. What does it mean to make an announcement like that? Fiscal considerations aside, which we've been talking about in these vlogs. It means that resources and acknowledging the effort as a result of the resource use is going to be put into the very best possible online education or digital rendition of dance possible. And who's going to benefit from that? Everybody, us consumers of education, consumers of arts, just like I've been talking about consumers of foods. And I mentioned my earlier book, Finding Balance, which looked at real challenges and rewards of being a dancer. But a lot of the book was on resilience and building adaptive capacity, and what Whim W'Him and Olivier Wevers is doing with that company and those dancers and their mental health, because, oh yes, their support, regular support for working with the dancers on their mental health, as well as ways in which Olivier is working with the dancers in terms of physicality, all with social distancing and appropriate precautions. Well, this is a model for us all.